Good evening. Now we will approach the last chant of the Divine Comedy, the prayer to the Virgin, and the attainment of the maximum result of all this journey. And this begins with an introduction at the end of the 32nd canto through San Bernardo, which appears and substitutes Beatrice's presence, for he has written so much about Mary, so he was considered the saint who was more near and more devoted to Mary. That's why probably he's been chosen. It's also the one who wrote Templar's rules. And he proposes to Dante to supplicate Virgin Mary to protect him also in this journey, because he will not be able to do this by himself. He is going to reach such a point of being nothing that he will not be able to help anything. So he says that he might go backwards instead of going forwards. He may believe the contrary, and he should ask for her, who is the only one who could help him. That's how the prayer begins in the beginning of the 33rd and last canto. It is interesting that comparatively to the Pater Noster, who is proposed in the Purgatory, and which is quite similar to the Catholic prayer of the Pater Nostro, in this prayer to the Virgin Mary, the Ave Maria, so to say, he departs quite a lot from normal prayers in the Catholic tradition. For he starts with a beginning which is declarately regarding the transformation of consciousness, an alchemical endeavor, and talking about the circulation of energy and of the awakening of consciousness. Let's hear how. He begins with Virgin Mary, who are the son of your son, Vergine Madre, figlia del tuo figlio. So first of all, this entity, this deity, this God the Mother is completely pure from ego contamination, is virgin, and she is the mother of Jesus, but also she is the daughter of Jesus. So in some way it is a circulation of love, like the most unconditional love which a mother could have for his son or a father could have for his daughter. This circulation, and there is an icon in the Russian tradition in which is Jesus holding Virgin Mary as a small child in his arms. So this circulation is like the Ouroboros, the serpent who is continuing his length and his life through himself, eating himself, nurturing himself from himself, like a circulating fountain. And this circulation continues after, saying that Virgin Mary is the more humble and the more elevated of all creatures. So bridging all manifestation from the most dark to the most light, from the most humble to the most elevated. And she's also the star that should be followed, the aim that should be attained, the sea to which all things go. And this is a definition of God himself in the manifestation. And another circulation is depicted when he says that she's so pure that God accepted as he, the creator, to become a creature in her womb. And so there's this connection between God becoming man, and in man there is the birth of the divinity. So this is again the main circulation, which is the main aim of the whole comedy. And on earth, she is like a recirculating fountain of hope, but in heaven, she is like a sun at midday that emanates charity and love. So she's always, anyway, the giver, and giver of hope, giver of love. And there is no possibility of getting to God without passing through her. It's like a bird who would like to fly without wings if one wants to reach God without Mary. And you're so full of love, the prayer says, that you would answer any request before it is being even formulated. and all qualities of the highest degree are present in you. So after this vocation to Virgin Mary, so you feel this vocative state in the whole of this part, which is from verse 1 to verse 21, and this is also a particular number. There is another part in which San Bernardo presents Dante as somebody who is apt to do this prayer, who has the dignity to do this, because he has seen everything. He has seen all the spiritual lives from the bottom of the universe until the highest point of the universe. He's seen everything, like a pilgrim who's seen all world, or like a therapist who's seen all kind of people. And so he's seen everything, but he's now ready to go beyond this everything. He's ready to go to the nothingness. And the last part of the prayer is praying Virgin Mary to maintain his spirit somehow balanced, not to go foolish completely, because this is not something Dante could do by himself. All this prayer takes from verse 1 to verse 39. As I mentioned about the numbers, 39 is 3, and 3 elevated to its own power, 3 times 3. And this is the power of the Shakti, of the energy of God the Mother, the same glory which he talks about in the first chant of the Paradise. The glory means the beauty, the power, the delicateness, the mystery, everything is glory of God. And so this is why the prayer is so constructed as to end also on the verse 39. This first part of the last chant is followed by another part which goes from verse 40 to verse 145, in which Dante describes what happened to him after he got this connection with Mary. It's as if he wanted to go into very intimate contact with this quality of consciousness and become one with her and be transformed so by her. He describes what happens once this goes further. He says that Mary has this kind of reaction. First of all, she's very grateful for this prayer, and she opens, so to say, up towards them. So she looks at them, but then this seeing goes, because of an internal movement backwards, so to say, she goes towards the source, towards God himself. So she is the bridge of this love and of this devotion that Dante is expressing through the prayer of San Bernardo towards the Param Shakti, the God the Mother. And so this activity of Mary is very evident, even though she's not doing this with words, but we are here beyond words and beyond images, beyond anything. We are at the source of everything, where things are born and where things return. A small girl was saying the other day, "Mommy, why are things there? Why do things exist?" So this is an eternal quest of man to know how we are born from this source and how we can go back to the source. This is a very, very specific point, and all the journey until here is preparing for this last chant. So Dante says that from here on he was seeing more and more. It's talking always about the seeing, the eyes, and the things were as they were before, he comments, but I was seeing more, as if my sight was more sightful, was more capable of seeing. And I can't even remember, because it's a seeing with beyond any meaning, beyond any object. And it's like something which was in the seeing, melting from inside, like snow is melting when the sun is shining, like the Sibylla was giving a response in Delphi and writing this on leaves on a rock, and then the wind would take the leaves away. So the Sibylla had given and had not given the response. So the response has been given, the sight has been seen, but you cannot remember, you cannot take it, you cannot grasp it in some way, and so also reproduce it. In the same way, a third example he makes, like the boat Argo, was seen from the bottom of the sea, crossing the surface, and something that cannot be understood or remembered. And at this point, when I fused myself with the infinite energy, infinite meaning, infinite being, I had three visions. This is what is being described before the very end of the chant. The first vision is the connection of the universe. I saw, he says, as if they were all together as in a single book, in a single volume, what otherwise would be just pages everywhere, something disconnected. I saw the connection of all things, like if they were part of a single thing. And I saw the universal form of this knot, the knot that ties everything together, which appears otherwise as separate. And he also describes a sort of technique. It seems like a meditation technique. He says, my mind was suspended. She was completely concentrated. She was completely still, and she was completely aware, and always desiring to be more aware, to be even more lit by this fire of seeing and knowing. And it is impossible to get away from this once this starts. It gets self-multiplicated. You go inside this, and this is what brings you home. So it is not because things were changing that I could see things change. This is the first vision. He could see what he couldn't see before in the whole manifestation. And the second vision is the Trinity. So he sees like three circles. Actually, he doesn't use exactly the word circle, but again, something like circulation. And they had different colors, but they had the same, they contained somehow the same. This is not very clear, but it seems as if light is just one and it takes different qualities through the colors. So the colors were differentiating the circles, but at the same time they were manifesting the one thing that was shining in them. So the three are different, but the three are one. And what is contained in these circles, again, was something indescribable, because it seemed as if they were reflecting one to the other, like an iris, the part of the eye that is so circular and colorful and is where sight passes through, actually, what consents also to see. And so these, they were sort of breathing one into the other. They were reflecting one the other. And the third in particular had the quality of a fire. And this fire of breath, this breath of spirit, the Holy Spirit, so to say, in Italian it is more clear that Spirito Santo or Santo Spiro is connected with respiration. So it is not the breathing of oxygen and nitrogen and all that, but it is the breathing of prana, and of the central prana, which goes back home at the end of its journey through the central channel Shushumna. This circulation, which was first in a dualistic way, is now unified, and this is the same map which we find in the comedy that we also find in the Tantra and the yoga tradition in India. So I saw this vision of these reflections, and as if consciousness in itself was expressing and seeing itself, a quality of consciousness of being creative and enjoying its creation, and at the same time he's the one also that perceives, creates, gets enjoyment from itself, as if the creation was a mirror for God himself. And this is what he says with this very beautiful poetic saying, O luce eterna che sola in te sidi, O eternal light which only resides in yourself, sola ti intendi, and who understands yourself as only one, e da te intelletta, and being understood by you and understanding yourself, you love and you smile and you enjoy in yourself. All of this is intending that there is a circulation which is conceived and perceived what it has conceived. And this is all in itself, and looking into this container of this consciousness, what Dante sees is the third vision. He sees the face of man, his own face. And so in the face of God, which is without form, he sees the form of man. And he is completely bewildered by this, because he says, how can man be God and God be man? And this is the main thread that goes all through the comedy. And this is where all these visions end, because even this very high imagination, which is already beyond the normal imagining and normal thinking, but is also a sort of seeing which itself has to finish, because everything has to come to this end. And so he says, to my very high fantasy, I didn't have any more power to give sustainment. Everything ended in the possible way of representation. And at that point, this happens because I was looking for this understanding of how man can be God and God can be man. Just exactly as one could be seeking the principle of the square becoming a circle becoming a square, which is a way of saying in a symbolic way that the two logics, the one of the earth and of man, and the one of divine, the circle, and of God, cannot coexist, because they are completely different and separated. At the same time, they are one. They are two and they are one. This principle I was looking, but I couldn't reach, because I should have, I must fly too high to do this, he says, and I don't have the wings, I don't have the feathers to do this. My feathers are not apt to do such a thing, and so I had to let go. This letting go is where the poem really completes itself. He already had let go of Beatrice, like any artist should do at the end of his maximum effort. I let go understanding, I had let go vision, I had let go myself. And so in this moment, it's as if I was transported in another condition by a sort of lightning that happened into me, that happened to me. There was a sort of illumination, and in that moment that I let go any trying to understand and becoming this super energy which brought me to complete consciousness. In that moment, the image that concludes the comedy is the cosmic wheel, which is still in the center and which moves in the periphery, and which represents the individual and also the entire cosmos. And my will and God's will were completely one. There was no more separate will, which already was so in paradise, but here we have completed. Even the last desire to join with God had been concluded, because there was no desire, because there was no desiring person anymore. And at that moment, there was just what was. That is, love who moves the stars and the sun, who moves everything, the being and the becoming, and there was just reality. As a tantric text says, but before my knowing and my understanding were there, before my will was there, what was I then? And the answer is, I was just living as reality. And this is the conclusion of the Divine Comedy, which is a message for all of us today, not something of the Middle Ages, not something just symbolic. It is an alchemical practice for the transformation of consciousness and for evolution of man, and also a cure for all suffering, and also so from psychological, material states. It is a solution for everybody today. And this is why we are giving these talks, to help also people who are not of Italian mother tongue to understand what a profound and complete gift Dante has given to us through this work, which is particularly evident in this last chant, which is a book in itself.